German Chancellor Angela Merkel has confirmed that she would not seek re-election as chairperson of her Christian Democratic Union party in December, heralding the beginning of the end of her 13-year era of dominance in European politics. Merkel, who's 64, has been CDU chairwoman since 2000, and giving up the role would start a race within the party to succeed her as Chancellor. The euro fell to session lows on the news. Today's developments come after the CDU came home first, but bled support in a vote in the western state of Hesse yesterday, the second electoral setback in as many weeks for Merkel's Conservative alliance. Merkel's favoured successor is CDU Party Secretary General Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. Well, we cross now to our correspondent, Ira Spitzer from Berlin. Very good morning to you, Ira. It really is the end of an era. Many young people will have only known her as Chancellor and head of the CDU.
Well, it really seems like a sea change in German and European politics. That news today that Angela Merkel will not be Chancellor of Germany. Now, the big question on everybody's mind is, when will that happen? Now, she herself said that she plans to serve out her term as Chancellor, so that would take her to 2021. However, because she has indicated that she will give up her leadership of her conservative CDU party, that opens up a lot of possibilities, and much of this really depends on who Merkel's successor within the party will be. Will it be one of her allies, such as you mentioned, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, or will it be someone else, perhaps one of Merkel's critics or someone who is not so friendly to Merkel? And if that happens, it's not clear that Merkel can really survive that much longer. So really a seismic shift in politics here in the person of Angela Merkel, who for many people really has just come to represent Germany on the world stage because she's been leading Europe's largest economy for the past 13 years.
So what does this tell us about the shifting political landscape in Germany and in Europe, I guess? Is this really what's contributed to what seems like perhaps, you know, the sands of time have shifted significantly and she isn't the person for this new Germany, this new Europe?
I think that's absolutely a very good way to look at it. Germany has become much more fractured politically just in the last few years, and her center-right party is not really able to command the same sort of support that we've seen throughout her tenure. So in the elections that we just had in the German state of Hesse, the Conservatives just over about 27%, far less than what they had 5 years ago. We've seen that across the board, where German voters have been flocking towards the smaller parties, such as the far-right Alternative for Germany party, the AfD. Also, the center-left Green Party has had a resurgence this year, and much of that is because of voter dissatisfaction with the status quo, and who represents the status quo more than Chancellor Angela Merkel. So she's really had to deal with that issue. So I think now, looking at the future for Germany, there is this question whether German voters could perhaps return to the center to try and perhaps achieve more stability, or whether this could really open up the door to a far different Germany than we've seen under Merkel's pretty predictable leadership over the last few years.
So when did things start to unravel, do you think? I mean, I remember there was this whole issue of the number of migrants she allowed into the country over time. I wonder if from that moment on, or was it just that, you know, she'd been there for so long and that maybe it really is just about change?
Well, I do think that the migrant crisis, which peaked in 2015, where you had over 1 million people arrive to Germany in a period of just 2 years, I think that will prove to be the defining moment or the defining aspect of Merkel's leadership. And I do think that was also the moment where she did lose the support of certain segments of the German public. People started to really question what her government was doing. And that did, of course, lead to the rise of the far-right party. And while that's still not a major force in German politics, that is about 15% of the vote that used to vote conservatively behind Merkel. Now they've gravitated to the right. So losing that support, I think, has been critical for Merkel. But as you mentioned, she also, I wouldn't say leaves in any sort of disgrace or anything like that. I mean, having led the country for 13 years, it was perhaps just time for a change. She said she's not going to be seeking any office after she serves out her term, not on the European level, nothing in Germany. It sounds like she basically plans on retiring. So to some extent here, I think what you also saw was Angela Merkel seeing what direction the wind was blowing here and wanting to try and manage her own exit. Now, we'll see if that's really possible. Many people don't think it is. They think she will be perhaps pushed out by her own party over the next year or so, but we don't know that yet. It really depends on this vote that the Conservatives will have in December and whether they will kind of stick with the template that Merkel has laid out for the party.
All right, talking about template for the future, earlier on you kind of hinted about the succession battle that's probably likely to ensue. And I just wonder, when I think about Canada, when I think about France and Obama when he came into office, is Germany, does the country have an appetite for a younger leader now?
Well, I think that hasn't really come into play yet, because perhaps we haven't seen, there hasn't been sort of a transformational figure like you perhaps had in France with Emmanuel Macron or Canada with Justin Trudeau. Now that there is this opening in Germany, this power vacuum that is left because of the towering figure of Angela Merkel now being on the way out, we'll see if someone like that emerges. At least in her own party, there is, for instance, her health minister, Jens Spahn, who is actually a Merkel critic. He's indicated that he would like to lead the CDU and eventually become chancellor, at least for age. He would be similar to those other people, but whether he could be a transformational figure really remains to be seen. And also in the other parties now, they will see an opening. So I think Germany might be receptive to the kind of youthful energy that perhaps has swayed other societies, but I couldn't say that there is anyone here yet waiting in the wings to kind of take over that mantle.
All right, so now she was very much regarded as one of the foremost leaders of the European Union, and I wonder, given what's happening now, what does it mean for the Europe project if someone like Merkel disappears from the political arena?
Well, this certainly has wide-ranging implications well beyond Germany's borders. Obviously, within Europe, you're losing the leader of the EU's biggest economy. So some of the reform plans, for instance, that Emmanuel Macron, France's president, has been pushing, it's hard to imagine those economic reforms really going through with the same sort of enthusiasm now that Merkel is making way for somebody else. Also, the Brexit negotiations, those will be a little even more unclear now, because we don't know exactly what Germany's position might be and who really holds has the power in Germany, so to speak. So I think what we might see in Germany, at least for the coming months, if not the coming year, is really kind of Germany looking inward and trying to get its own house in order, trying to figure out what sort of government, what sort of society that German voters want to have, and then and only then can Germany perhaps be as engaged as it has been over the past few years in both European projects as well as international issues such as the situation in the Middle East and things like that. So no question that Angela Merkel's stepping down is, and again, this could be in a few years, it could be sooner, we don't know that yet, but her plans to step down certainly have a major impact on Europe.
All right, and that's where we're going to leave it. Ira Spitzer, thanks very much for joining us. That was Ira Spitzer speaking to us from Germany, of course, on that news that Angela Merkel has indicated that she is not going to run again for the leadership of her CDU party. And she's always said that the Chancellor of the country should also be the leader of the party. And so there will be that moment where she won't be the leader of the party, and it looks as if she may also be pushed out before her end of her term. If that happens, we'll certainly keep her top of that story.